Good afternoon, everyone. So where I am from, when someone says good afternoon, people answer. So good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon again. My name is Angeline Achoka. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I work for AstraZeneca, and I will be moderating this session. So expect fun times and good conversations and good conversations, okay? So I'll start us off with reading just something and then go into the bios for the different people who are going to come on up. So it's such a pleasure to welcome you all to this session on advancing regulatory convergence, strengthening capacity and harmonization pathways for biologics, biosimilars, and conventional medicines. Now I know what you're thinking. If you're like me, you're probably thinking, hey, that title has more information than one dossier. All right? But that's because it represents something big. The collective effort across Africa to make sure that the medicines we rely on, whether innovative biologics, biosimilars, or conventional drugs, are evaluated efficiently, safely, and consistently, no matter where they are registered. So we've come a long way as a continent, from the early regional harmonization initiatives in the EAC. I don't know if all of us were there, way back way, and to the establishment of AMA right now. We are not just talking about convergence anymore, we are actually living it. And that's a good thing. And yet, as anyone in regulation knows, convergence doesn't happen overnight. It takes trust, capacity, and sometimes a little bit of patience, which brings me to my first joke. I know I have tried, but this is the first one I want to try again. So somebody once said that regulatory harmonization is like trying to organize a family wedding. How many people have attended a family wedding? If you're like me from my side of Africa, weddings are a bit something, right? Everyone agrees it's a great idea, people should get married, until you start deciding who sits where and who does what. Then you really, really are planning a wedding, okay? So the beauty of today's discussion is that we have leaders and innovators and regulators here who are turning that family wedding into a smooth, well-coordinated celebration where everyone brings their own dish, but we all share the same table, all right? So over this next hour, we'll explore what's working, what's still challenging, and what practical steps can accelerate convergence across Africa. So I'll start by briefly introducing our distinguished guests into this session. First up, we'll have Mr. Raja coming to speak to us. So Mr. Raja is the Vice President, Global Regulatory Affairs at Biologics Limited, with over 25 years of experience in the biopharmaceutical industry. He is a thought leader in regulatory affairs, specializing in the development and global registration of more than 10 biosimilar products. He has successfully navigated complex regulatory landscapes to secure approvals for multiple biosimilar products across all advanced markets and more than 100 emerging markets. Notable achievements include the US FDA approvals of Ogivri, it's a first biological trastuzumab, and Semglee, first interchangeable biosimilar insulin glargine. So there are some words here that are a bit tough. It just shows you how big of an achievement that is. And as well as pioneering approval of biosimilar insulin glargine in Japan, the first by an Indian company. Most recent successes also include Yesintec, Kiste, and Bosaya. Mr. Raja has played a pivotal role in driving regulatory harmonization and engaging with global agencies such as USFDA, EMA, PMDA, MHRA, among others. He's orchestrated seamless integration of Viatris biosimilar business into Biocon, successfully transitioning over 400 products registrations globally within a 12-month period. If that's not amazing, I don't know what is, right? As a key contributor to Biocon's success in the biosimilar space, he led the regulatory team behind the company's landmark achievement worldwide in advancing biosimilar programs, improving patient access to affordable biologics. So join hands with me in welcoming Mr. Raja to the stage. And I think I need to start teaching you how to cheer. Yay! I was the only one making sounds yesterday in the room. So let's do that. When someone has great achievements as Mr. Raja, please let's cheer.
Thank you, Angelina. And thank you, everyone. First of all, thanks to AfriSummit team, PRA team, for creating this great platform, bringing together regulators all across the region, and also the industry colleagues to discuss some of the very important topics, and also some of the regulatory developments that are happening across the globe, and adopting them, and then helping the patients to get access to some of the critical medicines. Before I start my topic, I also would like to thank Biocon Biologics team who are there here with me. For the first time we are participating in this forum, and we see a lot of good things happening in the region. Especially happy to learn that there is a lot of harmonization efforts that are happening, be it implementation of ECTD or reliance procedures, or track and trace, the serialization activities. And more than all this, congratulate all the agencies who cleared the WHO level 3. It's a great progress, and I'm sure in the long run, this will help the agencies and patients in the region having access to very high-end medication across the globe. Can you move? Sorry, I think, can we move to the next slide? Yeah, just a quick introduction about the company that I'm representing. It's a Biocon, India-based company. We are 46 years legacy, started as an enzyme company, and then now doing all high-end biosimilars and research services, apart from generics and APIs. So it's a 5.7 billion capital company with over 11 manufacturing sites across the US, India, and Malaysia. And we have more than 200 CGMP approvals across different agencies who inspected us. So the business is basically into three groups. One, biosimilars, which I represent, Biocon Biologics. And then Biocon, the parent company, where we do generics and API. We have also a servicing company, research services company, Syngene. They service at least like 14 of the top 20 clients across the globe. And then we have about presence in 120 countries across the globe. These are some of the biosimilar products that we have approvals across the globe. There are total 11 biosimilar products, and then we have 2 R&D sites, both in India, and also we have about 300 active patents and 450 scientists. Just give me a second, sorry. Sorry for that. Yeah, in the Africa region, we have about 30 countries where we are actively present through the strategic partnerships, and then many of the partnerships are also actively engaged with health agencies in registering our products. So we have significant market shares in some of the oncology products like trastuzumab, bevacizumab, across many of the region, countries across the region like Egypt, South Africa, Morocco, addressing the more than 50% of market demand. We have also enabled access to some of these biosimilar products, saving therapies to millions of patients. Yeah, getting into the topic like the streamlined development of biosimilars, just I want to start with the basic fundamental difference between a generic product and a biosimilar product. In a generic product where it is easy to establish the sameness of the product with the reference product, be it in terms of dosage form, safety, route of administration, or quality, performance characteristics, and an intended use. That's where it is easy to establish the bioequivalence for a generic product compared to a biosimilar product, where biosimilar product is complex, where you can see aspirin is about 180 Daltons to the monoclonal antibody, which is like 150,000 Daltons, which is like 800 times approximately more complex than a simple aspirin. And if you see there, the monoclonal antibody structure, which is having like more than 1,300 amino acids, which contribute in building the monoclonal antibodies. So that's where it is not possible to establish the sameness for a biologic product to its reference product. That's where this concept of biosimilar is evolved, where it's only possible to establish highly similar, where we can see like notwithstanding the differences in terms of inactive components, but it should have no clinically meaningful differences. And this complexity is further increasing when we are talking about bispecific antibodies or antibody drug conjugates or monoclonal antibodies through subcutaneous formulations. So the sheer complexity in size and structure makes it difficult to establish the sameness with the reference product. This is the brief history of how biosimilar guidances or biosimilar registrations over a period evolved, where you can see like Europe started in 2005, and then different agencies adopted the biosimilar guidances over a period of last 20 years. And also many of those guidances were revised also to bring some convergence across the agencies in terms of what is required to register a biosimilar product. So I think in the last 20 years, definitely there is some global convergence in terms of reference product. In the initial days, every region used to request to establish a bridging with the locally available products, but that's more or less now gone. I think agencies are agreeing to a reference product from regions where there is like either ICH or equivalent regions where the full review and approval was done. So initially the animal studies, the preclinical animal studies used to be the part of the development, but now because they are not adding any value in terms of evidence for the establishing the similarity, I think now more or less all the agencies agrees that there is no need for animal studies. CES, which is nothing but comparative efficacy study and PK study. Earlier, there used to be like a requirement for local patients or local healthy volunteers to be part of these studies, even though there was no ethnicity differences for the original product, but still many agencies used to insist, but now I think that is also more or less gone. So all the agencies are converged in terms of what is required for the either CES or PK studies. And the regulatory reliance process is adopted by many agencies, and that's actually helping in accelerating the access for these high quality biosimilars across the globe. So overall, I think there is a revision of biosimilar guidelines happening specific to streamlined development. And as you can see, many agencies starting from EMA, Health Canada, WHO, US FDA, and ICH leading the way for harmonizing this streamlined development process. Just to give a bit of history, like how these biosimilar development guidance evolved over a period of time. So the original guidance which EMA started probably was more based on comparability exercise that was based on ICH Q5E to regulate manufacturing changes for the reference product. That was the basis on which the similarity exercise that was developed. And then the stepwise approach was taken starting from analytical, preclinical, PKPD, and then phase 3 studies. This was a stepwise approach because at every stage the residual uncertainty was assessed and the next stage was prepared accordingly, planned accordingly. And the final step, like comparative efficacy studies, is more like a confirmatory study, evidence to no clinically meaningful differences either in the efficacy, safety, or immunogenicity in sensitive patient population. This was the initial framework. And largely, this is more conservative and cautious approach when we look backwards and after 20 years. Largely, this is because there was a limited capability of analytical characterization methods in terms of their poor resolution or limited in vitro methods that were available mainly to evaluate the structure and function relations. And also, there were theoretical concerns on the clinical safety and clinical efficacy of the biosimilar products, but because they were never tested or assessed that way. Also, there were few issues like safety events reported for red cell aplasia, reported for primary packaging changes of erythropoietin in late 90s was also one of the reasons why that conservative approach was taken. As you can see, the reference products, the uncertainty goes up by the time actually it goes into clinic. But in the case of biosimilars, the uncertainty is at the initial analytical phase itself. Once the analytical phase, we are able to establish the similarity, I think the rest is more on further proving the similarity through PKPD studies and CES studies. So what began as a careful and conservative approach, finally, I think the transformative journey started. The major reasons or major themes that evolved in the last 20 years, mainly over 100 distinct biosimilar products approved worldwide. And they are followed by divergent regulatory processes supported by diverse set of data evidences. And also significant breakthroughs happened in terms of analytical technologies, be it multiple, MAM or SPR related in vitro techniques that help to actually understand the structure function relationships and the impact on the clinical performance, either it is on the PK or on the safety efficacy part of it. And also preclinical animal studies, as we discussed, they're not adding any value in terms of establishing the similarity over and above because we don't see right animal models for majority of the products. That is also another reason the preclinical studies are no more a requirement. In terms of data from comparative efficacy studies, they are also not adding any evidence because the current methodology in terms of analytical physicochemical characterization or functional characterization, they are much more sensitive compared to the clinical studies that are done. And also there is extensive patient experience with biosimilar products has accumulated amounting to millions of patient years. That's through the real world evidence and real world data. So overall, the four overarching guiding principles evolved further transforming the biosimilars journey. Process is the product where if the gene that is encoding the product is properly designed and then process is designed, that takes care of largely the similarity part of it at the physicochemical level. And since when structure determines the function, the in vitro pharmacology becomes the cornerstone of the biosimilarity. And preclinical, as we discussed, is now more of a redundant, and rationalization of CES waiver is a primary evidence for biosimilarity. So there are so many publications on this where US FDA, EMA, PMDA, and many other agencies analyzed data coming out from biosimilar development studies. You can see a lot of those references here. The theme that is coming out again is like phase 3 or CES studies, not adding any evidence in terms of creating any evidence for biosimilarity, and switching studies, which is basically more of a US requirement, but that's also now become redundant because the switching of patients between biosimilar and reference product did not add any value. So, and worldwide, there is so much of post-marketing data, which is like 2.7 billion days of patient therapy with no clinically meaningful differences in safety and efficacy was also one of the development. So based on all this, many agencies started revising their guidances. Some of this is reflected here. MHRA, EMA reflection paper, or Health Canada draft guidance. All these agencies are now started moving towards rationalization of phase 3 studies, and some more here. But I think IPRP played a great role. They conducted a workshop through their Biosimilars working group, where more than 40 regulators, including Egypt and many other agencies from the region also participated. I think this is one great development in terms of alignment between the agencies as well as the industry on the rationalization of phase 3 studies. Again, the theme remains same. There is not enough evidence that is created through the CES. Instead, the analytical characterization and similarity at the analytical functional levels should give that comfort and evidence required for the similarity. While all this is happening, I think last week FDA also released a draft guidance on CES rationalization or waivers. Where they clearly identified wherever the product is locally acting or where there is no structure-function relation or poorly understood, those are the cases only the phase 3 studies are expected. Otherwise, it's largely the rationale can be built for building the biosimilarity through analytical characterization and PKPD studies. Yeah, that's all from my end. Thank you.
Better clap, please. I feel like I need to perhaps give you ideas. In Kenya, we have a lot of clapping methods. So we have what we call the 5 factorial. Who knows what the 5 factorial is? Okay. I know there are some Kenyans in the room who know this. All right, so 5 factorial, you clap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. So we'll do that for Mr. Raja. Okay, let's do the 5 factorial. No. That's not working. So let's start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have tried. We have tried. So because we are both regulators and industry and thought leaders in here, I'll say we try again. Even if we don't get it right the first time, we try again. So on stage, I have the honor of inviting our next speaker for this session, who is Marlene. I have had the honor of working with her before. Let me just get her bio. As she walks to the stage, Ms. Marlene is a distinguished graduate from the University of Witwatersrand, holding both a Bachelor of Pharmacy and an MSc Med Pharmacotherapy degree. Her career in the pharmaceutical industry began in 2008 as a GMP compliance pharmacist and she subsequently transitioned to roles in quality assurance and regulatory affairs. Ms. Marlin's regulatory journey has seen her work with renowned multinational corporations such as Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, GlaxoSmithKline, Abbott Laboratory, and AstraZeneca, as well as locally Adcock Ingram, OTC. In her last 3 roles, she served as the head of regulatory affairs for Sub-Saharan Africa. Additionally, she has held positions in quality assurance, a responsible pharmacist, and in regulatory affairs leadership across consumer and OTC, pharma and biotech sectors in South Africa, and the English-speaking Africa, Portuguese-speaking Africa, and the French-speaking markets. Recently, Ms. Marlin founded her consultancy company, Pharmacy. We were just talking about it, and I was trying to get the correct pronunciation. So it is Pharmacy Limited, which offers compliance services to the pharmaceutical industry. She has also contributed to academia as an honorary lecturer at Wits University. Throughout her career, Ms. Marlin has received numerous accolades, reflecting her adeptness in navigating the complex regulatory affairs landscape and her excellence in leadership, strategic thinking, and solutions delivery. Her ultimate vision is to enhance healthcare in Africa through education and empowerment in pharmacy. Welcome, Marlin.
Thanks, Angeline. It's still the same cheerful spirit that I remember. So good afternoon again, everyone. Just want to make sure I can move the slides. Okay, it does work. So it's my pleasure again to be able to speak to you this afternoon, and I'm going to take you through a few concepts regarding post-approval changes. And firstly, I just want to also say thank you to those that made the time to complete the survey. Thank you very much for sharing your feedback. So we're firstly going to look at some common terms, and I'm sure all of these terms look familiar to you, but what I'd like to focus on is harmonization, since that is the topic for the day. So the key aspect with harmonization is that this is a formal alignment of standards, technical requirements and processes, and it usually requires legal or regulatory alignment at a regional level. Whereas with the other terms, they do not necessarily require alignment of the legal framework. Okay, and that's important to keep in mind. So I just want us to cover the typical post-approval change processes that happen within a marketing authorization situation, as well as with the regulator. So in a pharma company, we have the quality function that oversees typical change control processes, and I'm sure all of these changes look familiar to you. And then we have the regulatory department that ensures that these changes are updated in the dossier accordingly, and that supply continuity is maintained. And a big aspect here is ensuring that supply continuity is not, or supply is not disrupted in any way. So we already know that the communication between the MAH and the regulatory authority has certain steps or certain criteria in place in order to make sure that the dossier updates are communicated in a manner that is received well and can be approved in a short space of time. However, we know from practice, right, that there are issues with classification of variations, the documentation requirements, and this is when we compare this across different countries, approval timelines, which are sometimes long and unpredictable, then reliance pathways, even though they are available, their use is limited, and then capacity constraints, which we experience both in the industry as well as with the regulators, which leads to backlogs, okay, and I'm sure all of us have experienced this. And then with the advent of electronic submissions, we have digital transformation, but this is staggered and is slow. Okay, So I think all of these challenges we are familiar with. We know that currently, and we've touched on this, that processes are fragmented, duplicated, long timelines, and what we're looking forward to is a more harmonized approach. Okay, so without taking too much time on the aspects that we are already familiar with, sorry, I'm just trying to change the slides. Okay, the benefits of harmonization, both for marketing authorization holders as well as regulatory authorities, I think this is quite obvious. On the regulator side, we have a better risk management as well as reduced workloads. On the MAH side, we have predictability of timelines in terms of approval so that we can ensure supply chain resilience. Okay, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the writer and speaker Simon Sinek. He's written a book called Start With Why. Okay, I think we've covered the why in quite a lot of depth, so I'm sure we know why we have to harmonize. But we're going to look now a little bit as to the how. How do we actually harmonize when it comes to post-approval changes? And what we're going to look at is the ICH Q12 framework, which covers some tools and enablers on how this can be done. This ICH guideline actually looks at the technical and regulatory considerations for pharmaceutical product lifecycle management. It was adopted in 2019, in November 2019. Currently, on the public domain, I have not been able to find any information of any African health authority adopting this framework as yet. There are, however, guidelines available from the EU, from the US FDA, from Japan, PMDA, as well as some partial guidelines from WHO. This framework applies both to small molecules as well as biologicals. And what we will find is that these tools are complementary. They are intended to facilitate addressing the entire spectrum of post-approval changes, but in a manner that is synergistic. Okay, so these are some of the concepts that we're going to be speaking about today. The first one is established conditions. Then we have post-approval change management protocols, product lifecycle management, PQS, which is your product quality system as well as change management, structured approaches to frequent CMC changes, such as your CEP updates, and then stability data approaches. So how do we ensure that all of these handled in a manner that is proactive rather than reactive, that they are science-based and risk-based, okay, and that they are holistic and efficient. And we'll find that these tools help us to achieve all of that. The first concept is established conditions. And established conditions is really about providing a very clear understanding between the MAH and the regulatory authority about which aspects in the dossier are actually product quality elements. The key principles here is, firstly, we have to identify which are these established conditions. And like I mentioned, they would be science and risk-based, and they would obviously impact the dossier sections because this is what triggers the variations. Then we have supportive information. So supportive information does involve changes in the dossier content, but not necessarily in the quality of the product, and therefore would not have to involve communication to the health authority if it changed. These ECs may change during the product life cycle. However, there needs to be options available to the MAH for this. Revision can also be through the post-approval change management protocol, like I mentioned. It can be done in the original marketing authorization application or as part of a post-approval submission. So I'm sure you're already thinking, well, this would take a lot of planning, right, to be able to do it at the marketing authorization stage. So some of the responsibilities that we can expect is from the MAH perspective. Changes need to be managed proactively and very well. There needs to be coordination between the approved marketing authorization as well as all the sites that are involved. And then from a regulatory authority perspective, all of the ECs need to be approved, and subsequent changes to ECs also need to be managed. And then there's an additional responsibility for the holder of the referenced submission. So that is your recognized regulatory authorities or your stringent regulatory authorities, and their responsibility, or the MAHs in those regions, would be to communicate these ECs to the dependent MAHs. Okay, I know that was quite a mouthful, but this is quite an important aspect to be familiar with in order to understand the rest of the tools and enablers. So what you see here are screenshots that I've taken directly from the ICHQ12 guideline. They are grayed out blocks and they are clear white blocks. And what you'll see is that the clear white blocks, if you look at it, the control of the drug substance, your specifications, your analytical procedures, these are product quality elements. So which means if they change, they could impact the quality of the product. Whereas the grayed out blocks, like your validation data, your justification of specifications, your batch analyses, this is information. These are supporting information. So if there are changes to them, they don't necessarily change the quality of the product. So I'm sure you already can see, right, the reduction in the amount of work in updating the dossier if we had to follow this type of framework. Then we're going to move on to how do we determine what is an EC, what is an established condition. Firstly, we ask the question, does the parameter need to be controlled to ensure the product quality? If it is a yes, then yes, it would be considered an established condition. Then we ask, what is the potential risk to the product quality if the parameter changed? If it was high, then it would require prior approval, similar to variations now, right? Major and minor variations. If the risk were moderate or low, then it would require a notification. On the other hand, if it was not an EC, it would not require reporting to the health authority, but it would require managing the change through your product quality system or your quality management system. Okay? The next major concept to look at is post-approval change management protocols. This is a regulatory tool which provides predictability and transparency in the requirements and the studies that are needed to implement the change. This is an approved protocol, which means that it is done well in advance, and it's done to prepare for the commercial phase. There is a lower reporting category and a shortened review period compared to if there wasn't a post-approval change management protocol in place. And then some of the key principles with this concept is that it can be matrixed, which means that you can have one change involving a number of products, or one product with a number of changes, or even a number of products with a number of changes. Okay? This is submitted with the original MAA or subsequently as a standalone submission. One of the key principles here as well is that the conditions and the acceptance criteria, which is outlined in advance in the post-approval change management protocol, must actually have the conditions met when the change is implemented. So also it takes a lot of coordination and management, but it can be done. Then once the change has been implemented, the results need to be communicated to the health authority in an agreed manner in order to implement the change. When we look at the roles and responsibilities, it is up to the marketing authorization holder to ensure that while these changes are taking place, the facility at which the change is effective meets GMP and licensing requirements, and also to ensure that there is no change introduced which may bring about a new risk to the patient in terms of safety, quality, or efficacy. Another good checkpoint would be to see if the CMC change requires any supportive efficacy, safety, pharmacokinetic, or pharmacodynamic data, then it's not suitable for a post-approval change management. Okay, so I think it gives us a good framework, a good idea of how to position these types of concepts. Then the last one that I'm going to look at in a little bit more detail is the product lifecycle management. And here, this is the full plan for the lifecycle management of the product, can be prior to registration or even after. Okay, so this includes managing your established conditions, reporting categories for the established condition changes, post-approval change management protocols, and post-approval commitments. And the purpose here is to encourage prospective LCM planning by the MAH. This also serves as a central repository. It can be in the MAA, and it would ideally fit in your 32R section in your dossier. It's submitted to the MAH in the original MAA, or as a supplement or a variation. Okay, and then updates can be included in the post-approval submissions. The next one that we're going to look at, but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Okay, this is PQS, the Product Quality System and Change Management. Basically, what this means is that there needs to be an ongoing synchronicity with the PQS change management and knowledge management. So what it basically means is that whatever's happening on your site needs to be happening in your documentation as well as in your dossier, okay? And then also, not going to go into too much detail, but just worth mentioning that I'm sure all of us are faced with, especially where you have a number of products with CEP updates on a regular basis, it becomes quite difficult to manage, especially if those changes are administrative. Okay, so ICH Q12 provides for a way of managing that together with your stability data. And I'm just going to show you quickly what that looks like. So here, this is the visual of where each element would sit, your established conditions within the post-approval change management protocol, and that sits within the product lifecycle management maintenance plan. And then before I end, sorry, I know it's quite a lot, but I'd like to maybe put a proposal forward as to how we can have a roadmap to adopt this in Africa. And what it would take is active multi-stakeholder engagement, and if we put our minds to it, we can implement this with urgency, because as we can see, there is a framework for it, okay? So what would need to happen is to map out the post-approval changes, the current rules for post-approval changes, identify some priority markets, and then draft a harmonized post-approval change guideline with a Pan-African or a REC anchor. Okay, the second phase would then be to select a subset of products or regions to pilot these harmonized post-approval changes. The third phase, which would probably be the longest, would be then to broaden the adoption and then to also align the national laws and regulations. And we know that this will take political will and quite a lot of time to get that alignment done. However, with the regulators, the industry, and also with WHO support, this can be realized. Then in phase 4, this is where continuous improvement happens, and by monitoring KPIs, we can actually see the impact of moving to this kind of framework. What it will require, though, some of the factors needed, is that we have to embed a proactive versus a reactive mindset, and I know that this is very difficult in a typical commercial setting where we are all under pressure. There would have to be an increased trust level by the health authorities. Our data integrity needs to be optimal at the MAH level. QMS needs to be robust and well maintained, as well as all our third-party agreements need to be very sound and very solid relationships with our manufacturing sites. And then just some closing key messages is that harmonization is deliberate. It requires a revision revision of legal or regulatory requirements. The tools and enablers are available. It is at our disposal, okay? Multi-stakeholder collaboration is vital in order for us to implement this with urgency. And then I know the thought of getting to this is difficult because we're so used to what we used to, right? But the short-term sacrifice is worth the long-term benefits, and I'm sure we will see this in time. Thank you.
Checking. I think we forgot how to clap again. We were supposed to do the 5 factorial. Let me prompt. We start now. A bit energy. No, we missed 2. Did you hear 2? I didn't hear it. I think next time I'll check for it. So right now, we are going to move into the panel section, and I'll introduce the panelists as they come onto the stage. These panelists are very distinguished and very learned, so we want to hear from them. We have people from the regulatory authorities and industry having a conversation on this particular topic. And I want to ask us all to fasten our seatbelts, or should I say fasten our GMP seatbelts? Anyway, and let's get harmonized, okay? So panelists, our first panelist on stage will be Mr. Varma. Mr. Varma is an Associate Vice President, Global Regulatory Affairs at Biocon Limited, with over 23 years of experience in the biopharmaceutical industry. Varma is a recognized leader in global regulatory affairs, specializing in the development and approval of biologics. He has played a pivotal role in securing approvals from multiple biological products, including biosimilars and vaccines, across key global markets such as LATAM, MENA, CIS, Africa, and APAC. Notably, he pioneered the first ever. Okay, so I was about to say it in Kiswahili. You know, Kiswahili we say, sema. Anyway, what it means is say first ever. When I say first ever, you repeat first ever. All right? He pioneered the first ever US FDA approval for a vaccine candidate from an Indian manufacturer. Say first ever. Thank you. Mr. Varma has successfully obtained regulatory approvals in over 100 countries and secured GMP accreditation from leading regulatory agencies. Currently, Mr. Varma leads the regulatory team for emerging markets and India, driving the company's mission to expand patient access across the world, to expand patient access to affordable biologics. Karibu sana, Mr. Varma, welcome. Whatever is comfortable. All right. Second up, we have Dr. Samar. Dr. Samar is a highly experienced regulator who has dedicated her career to ensure the quality, safety, and efficacy of biological products, with over 14 years of experience in marketing authorization of biological products in the EDA. Currently working as a manager of the Biological Products Registration Administration at EDA, where she leads the evaluation and regulatory oversight of vaccines, blood products, cell and gene therapies, and other biological products, and contributing to decisions on the approvability of regulatory submissions. Dr. Samar holds a Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Sciences from the Helwan University, Egypt. She began her career as a biological registration specialist and steadily progressed to senior leadership roles as unit manager, contributing to the development of biological products regulations in EDA, drafting and final issuance of the biological products guidelines related to procedural management of registration processes and post-approval changes, updating all SOPs regarding file submission, review process for different regulatory pathways, handling the query responses for new file and renewal file, and review the product leaflets and labels, developing and issuance of reliance pathway guidelines in biological product registrations and packs. Welcome, Dr. Samar, to the stage. I feel like, like the way you go to a concert and then everybody goes like, wow, and then the claps go. So when I say that, perhaps we should do that. Anyway, I'm just joking. Next up, we have Dr. Sonia. Dr. Sonia is the head of National Control Laboratory at Tunisia's National Regulatory Authority, a position she held since 2023. With over a decade of expertise in pharmacology, pharmacotoxicology, and regulatory science. She has played a key role in strengthening Tunisia's regulatory framework for medicines and vaccines. She currently serves as head of evaluation of CMC dossiers for chemical, biological, biosimilar, and vaccine products, and has led the pharmacotoxicology department at the National Drug Control Laboratory. She has been instrumental in guideline development, notably as the redactor of the new Tunisia guidelines for the registration of medicinal products through reliance procedures, and as a contributor of the country's first biosimilar guidelines. At the regional and international level, she's a member of the North African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization, NAMRH, Secretariat and Working Group, as well as a member of the WHO Expert Committee on Biological Standardization. She contributed to the WHO CMC assessment of COVID-19 vaccines during the pandemic, and has conducted GMP audits of biological manufacturing sites abroad. Nationally, she serves on several scientific committees, including the COVID-19 Vaccine Scientific Committee and the National Biosimilar Pharmacotoxicology Committee. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Sonia to the stage. I also want to welcome Dr. Makram from Merck. Oh, there you go. I was trying to see where you are. Okay. So, Makram is a regulatory affairs senior manager at Merck Egypt for 6 years with 18 years experience across governmental and private sectors. In his previous roles, he was technical officer at Ministry of Health, Associate Minister of Health. Makram is a pharmacist by education from Cairo University, holding master's degree in health economics too, having a strong interest in the application of AI, data analysis, and data visualization to advance innovation within the health sector. Welcome, Dr. Makram. Next up, we have Dr. Khadija. Dr. Khadija is a consultant public health pharmacist with over 20 years experience, working with the National Agency of Food and Drug Administration and Control, that's NAFDAC, across enforcement, registration, and establishment inspection functions of the agency. She holds a BPharm, Masters of Public Health, MSc Regulatory Sciences, and a fellowship of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. Dr. Khadija is the director in charge of vaccines, biologics, and medical device registration, and regulatory affairs directorate of NAFDAC. She leads multidisciplinary teams in the directorate that carry out all the reviews of technical documentation and other activities leading to the issuance of marketing authorization of vaccines, biologics, and medical devices, including emergency use authorization and post-approval changes to registered products. She is also responsible for authorizing donations of vaccines and medical devices for humanitarian and public health. She is a key participant in the technical working groups responsible for the development of the NAFDAC medical device and GMP for pharmaceutical products, regulations and guidelines, as well as ongoing review of these regulatory tools for continued adequacy. She's also a member of the NAFDAC QMS Steering Committee, which is responsible for monitoring and maintenance of QMS for the agency. So Dr. Khadija is the focal person for NAFDAC in the ongoing efforts in preparation for effective regulation of local manufactured vaccines in Nigeria. She's a member of the National Technical Working Group for local vaccine manufacturing and the lead of the regulatory sub-team in the group. She has represented the agency at several local and international meetings. Please join your hands again to welcome Dr. Khadija. So I'm over here walking like this and I'm saying, I'm from industry and I have all these regulators. What do I do? What do I do? Anyway, just joking.
Hello.
All right. So I will start from the farthest end and I'll have a few questions for Mr. Varma. And the idea here is to just get an understanding and a feel of what this biosimilar space look like, okay, from an industry perspective. So, what are the most significant regulatory hurdles in biosimilars today? And how can they be streamlined?
I think as explained by my colleague in his previous session, so there was a lot of convergence happened from the past couple of decades globally, but still there is a lot of convergence required to happen. One of the recent happening is that regulators are encouraging for waiver of phase 3 clinical trials globally. It is happening in the ICH region already, but a lot of convergence need to happen over the other parts of the world, like whether it's being Africa or Middle East or maybe LATAM and CS region. There are some regulatory agencies which are considering on a case-by-case basis, but a lot of convergence still need to happen there. And other challenges are like, as you know, most of the countries follow CTD format for the dossiers, but there's also administrative documents, a lot of differences in administrative requirements across regions. So probably there should be convergence should happen in that angle as well. And another important challenge could also be the labeling requirements. So labeling requirements also vary globally, like each country has its own regulations. It's always cumbersome to maintain different labeling across different markets. It is cumbersome for the manufacturers as well as maintaining the stocks so that whenever there is any requirement comes, we can simply supply the product globally. That's another challenge, I would say.
So have you had any experience with fast track of the approvals in any of the agencies?
Yeah. I think thanks to the current, actually, I think a lot of things are happening in African region as well. So Tunisia and Egypt, they've already announced the Reliance pathway, so fast track pathway. So I think probably this has already started happening. So it's happened already in the other parts of the world like LATAM and APAC region. So this is also happening now in Africa. So it will definitely benefit greatly to bring the product at an early date. When the patient access can be done, made early, very early. And of course, it also reduces redundant, I would say, review by various regulatory authorities. It will also helpful in saving resources for industry as well as the regulators.
Thank you so much, Mr. Varma. And now I just want to, we've heard from industry. I would like to hear what now the EDA, Dr. Samar, what are some of the best practices for EDA related to regulatory strengthening and harmonization?
Thank you for your questions, Dr. Angeline. Good afternoon. I am honored to be here with you today. EDA stands today as Africa's leading regulatory institutions, playing vital roles in building regional capacity and regulatory harmonization for biologics and biosimilars. EDA is the first African national regulatory authority to achieve WHO maturity level 3 for both medicines and vaccines producing country through their global benchmarking tools, meaning stable, well-functioning and integrated regulatory system. Using their global benchmarking frameworks helps identify gaps and get measurable targets for improvement. Best practice continual review of performance against international standard. EDA has issued clear internationally aligned guidelines for registration of biologics and biosimilars, referencing ICH and the WHO standard, including scientific guidance on comparability, immunogenicity, and post-marketing monitoring. EDA also has introduced the lines pathways for registration of biological product and allow Egypt to depend on trusted authorities' assessment to expedited review, reduce duplication, and speed access to quality biologics. EDA follow risk-based regulations according to lot release policy for products that can increase regulatory efficiency and using risk-based approaches, high risk versus low risk products, adopt flexible pathways and reduce low value duplication. EDA also support local production for biologics and biosimilars through partnership with Egyptian and international manufacturers to strengthen self-reliance. And the EDA signed several MOUs and collaborate with WHO, ODA, NEPAD, and the African Medicine Agency to promote knowledge exchange, training, joint training, and alignment of assessment practices. EDA also implemented the structured good review practice and continuous training programs for reviewers and inspector to provide technical mentor and assistance. Finally, the Egyptian Drug Authority demonstrate how national regulatory excellence can drive continental progress by combining maturity and science-based regulations, reliance, and regional partnership. EDA is not only strengthening its own system, but also actively contributing to a harmonized and capable African regulatory ecosystems for biologics and biosimilars. This leadership aligns perfectly with the vision of the African Medicine Agency, ensuring that safe, effective, affordable biological products reach all African patients faster and more equitably. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Samar. There's a lot going on from EDA. The best practices, especially the MOUs, are really helpful across the continent. So if we can adapt more and more, it would be very, very good for both the industry and the regulators. Thank you. So I want us to hear from Dr. Makram, who has been with the authority and then came to industry. And I just want to hear your reflections on how that has been like.
Can I start with reliance?
Okay, no reliance.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about it like it's partners, not rivals, toward the patient. We are not rivals as an industry and health authority for the patient. As we always say in Merck, as one for patient. So as long as we have identified target, which is our patient, this might make the miracles. I believe most of the people here have a lot of working years enough in regulatory to remember how we transferred from the umbrella from Ministry of Health to the independent Egyptian Drug Authority, where the unified target now is our patient. Now, if we go for the theme of this event for the reliance things, EDA started it from firstly from the risk-based approach for lot release, which was a very rate limiting step for our patients for the product. It was taking a lot of time to finalize the analysis of each batch for the biological. Then they go for risk-based approach. Then they raise up the level to the reliance registration, where I have a good experience for registration in 2 months. Wow, so it was a good thing.
Good.
Okay, then they go further more than for variations, and now even for reliance for the analysis of the product. Okay, they trust other authorities and other reference countries' documents, and then they make a checkup that lead us to more availability of the products and the quick availability for the products. Actually, this happened due to the mix between the experienced leadership that was there, and some of them are still there, and the newly youth leaders that appeared, and they depend on them in the EDA. This mix in a seamless way make what EDA now its status now. Really, I'm very proud as an Egyptian. Okay, firstly, then as that I was a part for this for some years, and then I part for the patient in Egypt in this era. Actually, for me, I'm very proud again, but we are asking for more, okay, because we are partners, okay, for the patient. We need more and more. We are eager. Now we are not the greedy companies for money, we are the greedy for our patients. Okay, let's make it clear as one for patients, and I really trust EDA to complete and to reach more and more. Now we have ICH members, delegates in WHO from EDA. How can you be more proud? So this is a great thing.
Thank you very much. I'll cross over to Tunisia, and I'll just want to ask you, what has been your experience at the Health Authority regarding submissions from different SRA countries, and what are some of the challenges you've experienced when you receive dossiers?
Yes. So the question is wide.
It's very wide. I thought I could,
actually, we start receiving biosimilar dossiers since 2002. And then the guidelines was issued in 2005. So some part of the first biosimilar submitted were studied as biogenerics, let us say. Comparability study was not established, were not well established like now. And then, like we saw in Dr. Raja's presentation, we were drafting our guideline on 2015 and approved on 2018, this guideline on registration of biosimilar in Tunisia. In this guideline, we kept some part or requirement vague because we doesn't know where we are going. Mainly, not in quality part, but mainly in transfer tech part, because many biosimilar producers, local producers, started to have a partner, a foreign partner from India, from Iran, to start registration the non-SRA, let us say, partner product, and then do tech transfer to Tunisian local producing for doing first fill and finish steps and willing to go through the whole step of bioproduction. Actually, we have 4 industries that are doing fill and finish and going to tech transfer, having the validation for this tech transfer. The problem that the dossiers of the partners are not always complete. So waiting for this marketing authorization first to be registered, to go then to deposit the Tunisian one. I'm not speaking about this, let us say it's not simple, but well-established biosimilar low molecular weight heparin, erythropoietin. This is easier dossier. We are mainly now speaking about insulin analogs. Insulin glargine is okay for the Tunisian one. We have the first Tunisian one. And now going to MAPS. For MAPS, it's a little bit more complicated because the production is complicated. And more of that, the comparability, those analytical comparability is more tricky and have very high requirements. Now getting to the difference between SRA and non-SRA dossier. The difference between the two are evident when you are evaluating the CMC and finding that dossiers coming from SRA countries or SRA regulatory authority, strong regulatory authority, you will find in the comparability study, let us say, more than 10 comparability lots. The number of lots in comparability studies are enough to have very powerful results. and very convincing result. Now coming to non-SRA dossier of biosimilars, you will find maximum 3 batches in each site, which is not enough to give you this, confidence about this comparability. Other challenges are the essays. When you see dossiers coming from SRA and seeing the number of essays and orthogonal methods used in the comparability studies, you have a range of essays that gives you a wide idea about this similarity. In contrary, the non-SRA dossier, they will start with specifications essay and putting 1 or 2 more essays for physical characterization. And our letters of insufficiency are always about that, about adding some more confidence, more essays, especially when you get some differences in impurity profiles or in some differences in stability profile. So asking them to do more and more. This is the kind of difference. So when we see our statistics in terms of marketing authorization or in terms of conformity of the dossier, we will find that there is an exchange of asking and requests and questions and conferences to get the final product approved. This is why the timelines for the authorization is a little bit longer for non-SRA dossier. So getting into that, knowing that we are in the North African country, we are getting exactly the same dossier. If we were working with harmonization or joint evaluation, I am sure that it would be easier to take the decision. So our experience that we are always asking for more and more information in the other one. And some of SRA dossiers didn't get even 1 insufficiency letters because they are sometimes giving them the unredacted reports. So it's more comfortable to give them the authorization. Knowing that the biosimilar, we are taking a biosimilar by tenders, national tenders. So this interchangeability program is not well established, and we cannot do it in this way if we have tenders every 2 years. The patient will have another biosimilar anyway. We will have them by force, let me say. Hopefully now with this clinical part discussed, for some of them we will not need this clinical study. But like we see, sometimes you will have this small comparability studies not very deep, going in deep, and ask them for some immunogenicity study in the specialized committee, let us say. This is a little bit the pitfalls of our biosimilar experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sonia. Same question, NAFDAC. Dr. Hadija.
Okay, thank you very much. First, I would like to appreciate the organizers for having us here. This is a very, very important platform that we should all exploit to help improve healthcare in the continent. The experience is not too different from what Dr. Sonia has just mentioned. A lot of times the submissions from non-SRA jurisdictions bring up a lot of questions, in terms of having the appropriate information in the dossiers. Sometimes you find that the reference biotherapeutic products that are being indicated in the dossiers are not even approved, and then you start wondering how you want to actually compare, with an unapproved product that doesn't have much information about the reference products. Many times we also see very vague manufacturing processes. There are certain critical steps in the upstream and downstream processes for the manufacturing that are missing in some of these dossiers, and this calls us to ask for more information about the application. Then another challenge we also see is insufficient stability data. You find that the submissions, especially from the non-necessary regions, give very limited information about the stability studies conducted on these products. They seem to want to rely more on what has been done on the biotherapeutic reference, and they don't give enough information about their own product to ensure the similarity or comparability that we're looking for. Then in some instances, we actually see unsupported clinical indications being mentioned for these biosimilar products, and you need to start asking for more information, especially with the evolution of not really requesting for clinical efficacy studies. This now it calls us to ask for more information when the application now has some unsupported clinical indications in the dossier submission. Again, a lot of times there isn't enough data to actually demonstrate comparability, a head-to-head comparability of the biosimilar with the biotherapeutic reference, and that it is a big challenge because you want to be able to see how this biosimilar would actually perform across the developmental process and then the life cycle. So these are some of the challenges. Another key one is not having a clear risk management plan, a pharmacovigilance plan in the submission, because these are products that, like I said, have limited information. They are relying on the reference product. So you want to see that there's very robust post-marketing plan for these products to ensure that if any issues come up, these are sufficiently addressed. So, like I said, the challenges are very similar. This makes the timelines to approval for this kind of submissions to be longer, unlike those from the SRAs where you have limited questions to ask and then you're able to get information and progress further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am cognizant of the time. My panel has a lot to just let us know about this convergence, biosimilars, biologics, okay? But I'm going to ask them for a parting shot. I'm going to ask them just, if this whole room was to forget everything you've said, what's the one thing they should not leave that door and forget? What should they remember? Anybody can go first. What should they remember about this conversation we are having?
Harmonization.
Harmonization. Okay. Convergence. Okay, thank you.
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
Okay. Partners, not rivals.
Pardon?
Partners, not rivals.
Partners, not rivals. Uh-huh.
Reliance.
So, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've been having. And this is typically a family wedding. We are on the table. We are all enjoying the dinner and dancing, but we all bring different ideas and different thoughts to the table. And we all get to get full and dance. All right? So with that, I want you to give my panel the 5 factorial clap. No? Let us start. We start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. Thank you very much.